today we want to talk about some of the work that we've been doing together with Deutsche Bahn, which is focused on high-speed rail services and specifically something within the ICE train. But before we get to that, let me just quickly introduce myself. So great to be here. I'm Florian. I've been in digital product design for almost 20 years now, building software and services for many different industries in many different markets. And one of my passion industry is transportation, so mobility in general. And we were fortunate enough to work with many major transportation companies in Europe and in Germany, but also on a kind of local, more regional level. And I'm working at Zigzag, and that's a small design agency based in Germany. Again, working in software and services in a kind of consultancy capacity, working in a holistic design process where we want to fuse user insights, data analytics, market research, and then of course go into the interdisciplinary design process that includes, again, research, visual design, interaction design, a lot of prototyping and technology to build nice products. Ideally, they are in somewhat of a mobility transportation focused sector. But in general, there's kind of different industries that we work for. The team is roughly 30 people, been around for 10 years now, very international, and it's really nice to have them all based in Germany, working on various different clients and industries. You can see there's a couple of different companies on here, but some of them we work with for a long time. And the most important one on here for today is DB, Deutsche Bahn, so German Railway. And together with them, we have a very strong relationship. And we were kind of fortunate enough to influence a lot of their different channels. They're focused on customers, of course, passengers, but also on employees. And so you can see it here on the slide. We basically did everything from mobile applications, websites, so tickets, passenger information, on-train entertainment. So they have a portal also on this ICE train that they use to play out information, but also entertainment. There is some information, digital signage type of thing in travel centers and also in their lounges that they use for frequent travelers. So we also worked on that. You can see that on the right-hand side in the background. The most important thing for today is the in-train information system. You can see it on the top left in the background for the ICE trains. So I did this talk already for a German audience where I didn't have to explain who DB is and what they do. And I wasn't sure about that in this context. I'm sure there's a lot of experts also in the audience that maybe know, but I thought I want to take a couple of minutes to explain who DB is. So basically, I guess for an US audience, it's most easily explained as the German version of Amtrak, I guess. Only that I think from the numbers, Deutsche Bahn or German Railway is quite a bit bigger. So they're state-owned, which has its own kind of set of challenges, but also opportunities, of course. And they describe themselves as the second largest transport company in the world. So quite busy, very, very big company, very diverse, different organizations that focus on different topics. And for this very context, we worked with the organization or part of the organization that is focused on far distance travel, so Fernverkehr. Basically, this is the kind of flagship train that they're operating. They introduced it in 1991, and I would say today it's really the symbol for train travel in Germany. The one you can see here is the first generation in the background, and I would say, as mentioned, it's the most prominent one out of all the trains they operate. When they started in 91, it was really just one connection that connected to a couple of major cities, so Munich in the south and Hamburg in the north, and connecting Stuttgart, where I am at the moment, and Frankfurt. They had 19 trains, and there was basically, as you can see here on the map on the left-hand side, one connection. So in 2021, which is still a very similar kind of situation to today, there's a lot more. So for all the major cities, you can see the kind of thick lines on the right-hand side. They are connected with an hourly frequency, which is, as a German, as a kind of traveler in Germany, it's really nice. And it's going to be even more increased. So the plan is to have 30 minutes. So every 30 minutes, there's going to be a train running between the bigger cities within Germany. That's at least the plan. Let's hope for the best. But today they have a fleet of 330 trains connecting 250 stations. And as it's shown here, 30 connections. So yeah, overall a really nice network. And that's just the kind of high-speed network that they have today. You can see here throughout the years, there were different generations being introduced. You can see on the left is the first generation, on the very right is the fourth one, so the current one. But they also had a lot of modernization programs run for these trains to make sure that they're still up to date. So also version 3 and 2 are still operating. And the goal is to have, you can see it on the bottom, 260 million passengers per year by 2030. Today, or actually pre-corona, it's been 100 million a year, so there's still big goals. But the nice number is that it's 1.5 billion passengers since the beginning. Yeah, and as you can see here, the number is growing. They also brought it to the US for a short while. So in '93, Deutsche Bahn and Siemens, who actually manufactures these trains, brought the train stateside and had it run for I think a year roughly, but then moved on to other providers and other operators. But still, it's kind of interesting to see that it also had some international relationships with other providers. But so that's basically all about the train. What we want to focus on today is something that happens on the inside, which is information systems, specifically the ones that are used for the passengers. So from the very beginning, they had these information systems on the train. And I still remember when I rode this train for the first time myself, the most impressive thing was always to see the speed in real time, right? You can see it on the bottom right. Quite fast, and especially interesting, to really experience this, and then of course also compare it to fast cars, for example, and the speed that you can do on the Autobahn. But of course, speed was not the only thing. Funnily enough, in all the research that we did for the new version, speed is still an important metric that people want to see. But of course, it's really important to look at traveler information, specifically real-time information. Are there any delays? Will I catch my next train? What's the next stop? How many minutes do I still have until we arrive? Stuff like that. And then on the bottom right, you can see they also started to introduce more like regional kind of touristic information. They show some kind of highlights of the next stops, what are kind of famous museums maybe, or landmarks that people would be interested in, and also use that in the passenger information system. So yeah, basically what we started with for this project was looking at the version that is most used today. And this is the one that I'm showing here. So it's this blue and white screen combination. And you can see here, it's actually on the ceiling of the train, and it's pointing in both directions basically. And there's two spots within the train where these are used. So on the ceiling, as the one you can see here, and then next to the entrance or exit doors, there are also these passenger information displays. They're just with a different aspect ratio, different orientation. But in general, they show very similar information. Not all of the trains actually have those displays, but the number is growing. So 220 out of the 330 actually have these information displays. And with this new generation that I'm about to show you, this number will go up. And of course, the goal is to have this throughout the whole fleet. So now the question that we also had in the beginning when we started this project together with Deutsche Bahn was, why are these screens even blue? Because that's, you know, if you look at the brand colors, or remember what I showed earlier, it's mostly red, white, and black. Why would they go with blue? So on the right-hand side, you can see the situation on German train stations where a lot of these information displays and also the signage on the kind of physical signage is mostly in blue and white. And there's a reason for that. So DB is operating the train stations as well. So a special organization or a special part of DB. But the job of DB in this case is to be somewhat agnostic to operators, right? So there might be other operators other than Deutsche Bahn also running trains. And therefore, all the signage must be kind of neutral, right? So it's not they're not allowed to brand it. And they basically took that thought and also applied it within their trains, which you could argue, yeah, maybe it's, you know, overdoing it a little bit, because the ICEs are definitely DB branded on the outside. They should also be branded on the inside. So that's basically how this whole project started, that one of the board members of Deutsche Bahn said, we actually should brand our passenger information system in the train to be more closely related to Deutsche Bahn. And that's actually what we did. So we looked in the beginning at what are the jobs basically of these passenger information systems, what are the benefits in today's world where most people actually carry a smartphone and maybe they don't need to rely on the signage anymore. But the key thing is that, yeah, information needs to be contextual. So depending on the state of the train, where is it? Is it stopping? Is it running? Is it departing? You can play out different information. It's accessible to everyone, basically, right? So you don't need a specific device or any kind of software or app installed. It's just right there. And from wherever you are in the train, you can basically really easily glance at it and check out the information that you need. So it's still, even though people carry smartphones, tablets, whatever, it's still very important as a point of reference and a point of information. So when we started this project, there were a couple of constraints that we had to deal with. First of all, and really an important one, is that we couldn't change the hardware. So basically the old hardware that's running the blue screens, it's still there. There was no upgrade in terms of capability. So it really limited the amount of animations that we could do, for example. It also limited what we could do in terms of bringing in new data and, you know, more real-time services. We basically had to work with what was there already. Then we definitely wanted to be more user-centric, so we did a lot of testing throughout the project and had different quantitative and qualitative studies done to make sure that we really understand what users want in different phases of travel. And then, as you've seen earlier, DB has a couple of UX guidelines that they, yeah, it's on a visual level, but also on a kind of terminology level, stuff like that. We also wanted to be consistent, of course. And as with all the infrastructure and train-related products, there's a kind of strict set of guidelines that we had to follow. So what's really nice is that Deutsche Bahn is actually owning this kind of infrastructure within the train. So the passenger information system is done by them in-house, basically. Of course, the trains are manufactured by Siemens and other companies. But to be consistent throughout all their train fleet and to be independent of certain vendors, they decided to take this in-house. So basically, all the capabilities of building software for the passenger information system is DB. So that gave us really direct access to the experts that know how to build these systems. And it also allowed us to test something on the target hardware. You can see what these two lovely gentlemen are discussing is basically a fridge type structure that contains the whole IT of an ICE train in one box. So we could simulate different phases of travel, which was super nice for the design, of course. And then I talked about principles, UX principles that we used. I just directly translated them since it's a German company. There's no English speaking manual for this. But this is basically what we followed. So trying to be in line with how they design their other touch points. And then I also mentioned that there's a couple of guidelines to follow. So in order to ensure that trains are interoperable between European countries, I mean, you know, the ICE is going to Austria, France, Switzerland, and many other countries. And also, of course, their high-speed trains are coming to Germany. And to make sure that this all works together nicely, the EU created a set of regulations. And parts of these regulations also affect how passenger information systems should be designed. So, you know, how large does the next stop need to be displayed? What's the font size and physical dimensions that we needed to show? For how long does it need to be shown? Stuff like that. And yeah, the motivation is basically to ensure that whatever European train you're taking, there is a certain set of guidelines that you as a passenger you know, can get used to, and basically similar to how I would say like Android apps all follow a certain set of patterns. Similarly, there's a set of rules what to follow for passenger information systems in Europe. And yeah, there you can see some of the things that we extracted about especially important type that needs to be shown quite large. And then of course it also has some language around accessibility. So, I mean, that's basically part of all modern interface design today, to think about contrast, font sizes, legibility, all these things. And of course, it also applies here. So especially contrast was a big deal with Deutsche Bahn having a lot of different types of gray in their corporate identity. And we also took this, this to heart. So then we took all of this basically as an input, and we really looked at the customer journey, which in this case is the literal journey of a train, right? So we can look at the different phases. There's a train that is now in the station, stopped, people are boarding. It's after the stop, people are in the train, and the train is about to depart. So people are looking for their seats, where they should sit down, and where's an available seat, where's my reservation, all that type of stuff. Then while traveling, there's a certain need for information. And then just before the stop, when you basically prepare to leave the train, or you're already thinking about your connecting train, all these things we took to heart. And for all of these phases, we basically asked the users, what is your most pressing need that we should satisfy from an information perspective? And I pulled out a couple of important ones. So in the beginning, of course, am I getting into the right train? Is this train going to my destination? And then, of course, where is my seat? That's always a very, very important question that people have throughout the trip. Once they got in, how do I find my seat? And then a big thing in the ICE is finding the right wagon number. So basically the carriage. You can see here on this example, it shows 27. You're in carriage 27, and the next one in this direction is 28. And this is important to know because the reservations are tied to the wagon numbers. So people that have a reservation, they're really keen on finding the right wagon and seat. And then, of course, once I sit down, how comfortable can I get? Because how much time can I actually spend in this in the train is also shown up here. Once the train departed, same thing. How much time do I still have left until I need to exit? Really important as well. Can I still go to the restaurant on the train? Can I start a movie? Whatever can I get? You know, unpack, or is it almost there? And then where are we is a really important thing as well. You can see in the background there's a map that shows the real-time position of the train, which is, yeah, again, really important. And especially seeing how fast the train is going, I mentioned that earlier as well, is a key thing for users. And it's shown here in the title bar on the very top in combination with the map. Then before the stop, so when the train is arriving at a certain station, people are preparing for exit, for leaving the train. It's really important for them to know if they have a connecting train that they need to reach, how much time do they have, and when is that train actually departing, and especially where, to which platform. You can see here on the right-hand side, it shows the Gleis, which is the platform, departure time, and then which trains are actually departing, so people can already look at that. Of course, there's also announcements that work together, so you can listen to things as well, but it's always good as a reassurance to see things on the screen. And then another thing, it's also like, do I need to leave the train left-hand side or right-hand side door? That's also something that people are interested in. That's why we also put it here in the title bar on the top. So, and in order to make sure that it works for this generation of the train, and it also works for future versions that might have different aspect ratios, they might have higher resolution screens, They might be in different areas. So Deutsche Bahn is already working on the next generation, of course, where they're really considering way more surfaces for displays that are maybe not only in the entrance and exit areas, but also maybe closer to the seat, maybe something even in the seat rest of the person in front of you. So in order to make sure that in the future we can also take this and use it somewhere else, we made a very modular and kind of responsive design that can be applied, as mentioned, through different screens. And you can also see in this visualization how things can be exchanged, how basically the screen is all built up in little modules and little tiles that can then be replaced with others to make sure that, as mentioned, in the future, we can support different screen sizes, but also we can bring in new tiles. So that was also one thing I mentioned earlier, that for this iteration, we were not able, unfortunately, to add new data and new services, but in the future, it could be something simple like the weather, for example, right? It's a stupid example, but then we could have a tile that fits into the other layouts, but it just adds a new bit of information. So that was one of the kind of key things that we wanted to achieve as well. Yeah, and basically you can see kind of more in context where it's being applied. The one on the right-hand side is what I mentioned, close to the entrance or the exit. And bottom left is one that sits close to the ceiling, so different places within the train. And we tested all of this, of course. So an important part was to validate the designs that we made. And here I already mentioned that we were able to run things on the target hardware, which was great, to try how animations are running, how screen transitions are working out. But then, of course, we also wanted to get the opinion of users from the very beginning. So there were more than 5 iterations on the design. And that's just for the design phase. Once we went into development, there were a lot more iterations, of course. But we did 5 rounds of qualitative research, 2 of quantitative studies. And then we also did user acceptance tests, which were basically done on kind of running trains. But what you can see here on the right-hand side in the background, what's interesting is Deutsche Bahn actually has a mock-up of an ICE, which is a one-to-one copy. It's in Frankfurt in a big factory hall. And basically people can go inside and try out all kinds of new things. So if you're thinking about, new seats, new tables, any kind of changes to the interior, you can try it out there. And you can see it there on the top. We also tried it, of course, with all the designs that we did for the information system. And we learned things, for example, like which is the right color system we should use, because this very type of monitor, it's made to basically run for a very long time, but it has a little different kind of behavior as our MacBook screens, for example. So we had to adapt things there as well. And then, of course, the kind of more slanted or tilted way of kind of fixing it in the train also provided some additional challenges when it comes to legibility. But thanks to this mockup, we were able to try that all out. And of course, this research was done to be more user-centric, to learn more about how people like the new system, but also, of course, management needed to be convinced that, okay, this can be rolled out, this can be put into production, and specifically to address that requirement. We basically did also a study of the blue screens, so the old ones, to basically get our initial set of the kind of quality score, so to say. And then we knew what we could test against. And in the comparison studies that we made, the new solution basically showed a pretty significant improvement. And that, of course, convinced the management to give us the green light and roll this out, which means that in today's ICEs, you can actually see it live. So now, slowly, the whole fleet is actually getting these new screens. We put it into a lot of different awards ceremonies as well. And actually, it got quite a lot of recognition, which is super nice. And now we basically help Deutsche Bahn to align also their in-train passenger information system a lot more to the brand. And it's not blue anymore, but it's in brand colors and it fits the rest of all their touch points. Yeah, I think I'm already at the end, but let me know if there's any questions, anything that you want to know? I think there are some questions already. Will these slides be available? So yes, of course, Hayden already mentioned it earlier. I think this session will also be recorded. So you can definitely also see the slides.
We have time for one question, and we'll have to wrap up.
Yeah. Peter asked one question, is the UI the same on the DB app? So yes, that's what I tried to explain earlier. So there is a set of kind of standards in the background. I would just jump back to this. So there are kind of mobile applications that follow the same guidelines. And yeah, there's a lot of patterns that are being reused. In the background, there's a massive design system that we helped build that is applied to all the different touch points. So I wouldn't call it the same, but it's basically an adaptation of that. Yes.